Pass them home.
All right, let's roll. Roll.
I like your spirit.
I'd like to call the
Oh, thank you.
order to the East Ascension Drainage
Cody?
meeting,
Hey, I'm Liz.
April the 8th, 2019. The Secretary, let it be known, everyone's present except Mr. Johnson, he's at work,
Mr. Cagmore.
and Mr. Cagmore.
He's at a funeral.
He's at a funeral. Okay, two absent. Mr. Clua, would you please lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge?
Would everybody please stand? In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we ask that you look upon the families that sustained damage during the last storm event. We ask that you continue to look over the parish and look over all the residents and keep them safe. Lord, it's with special prayers that we ask you to look upon the Fife family and the Bourgeois family for the loss of Mr. Joe Fife in his passing, a great guy. We ask you this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone that wishes to speak on any agenda item, please sign up with Ms. Liz. We'll, add additions to the agenda. Number 4, the acceptance of minutes for the March 11th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Dane, second by Mr. Todd. Chairman's reports. Just my little 2 cents on this. I want to really thank all of our workers. Over the last few days, they've been really tested. Again, no structures flooded, and a few roads had a little water on it, but I really want to thank Ron, all the group, a really outstanding job, and really want to tell y'all thank you. With that,
Recognize Mr. Cagmore.
Mr. Johnny made it in, Ms. Liz. With that, we'll move on to number 6, the drainage report by Mr. Joy.
We have several projects as usual throughout the parish. The New River Channel Improvement Project has plans very close to being finished. I was able to have a brief conversation with a KCS Railroad member, and that was really the only main topic that needed to be addressed in the plans. So I've relayed that information to them. So that's a blank that we had that when you're dealing with KCS officials, it's tough to get an audience there, but we do have some information that we'll incorporate in the plans. KCS, the railroad property will be addressed with their approval. After that, final plan should be coming out in the next few weeks. Bid proposal and contract will be made to be used for bidding purposes, and we'll have a mandatory pre-bid meeting. BKI is working on a flood-proofing backflow project. We have a plan in hand scheduled in the next week or so, and that should address some electrical issues, and that should make those plans final to where we can present that to see if we want to follow through with those plans, and that'll be presented to you at a future meeting. The drainage improvement project that includes Penny Street, Shealy, Savoy Road, and Riverside Estates has started. It actually started March 4th. That was the notice to proceed date. They began on Riverside Estates and on Savoy Road. All of the pipes The driveway pipes have been replaced. The concrete driveways have been poured back and are functional. Not all the ditches have been dug yet, so that project is not complete. It still has some ditch digging and final dressing to be done. They are also working on Shealy Drive. They've replaced most of the pipes there and poured the concrete drives back, but they have done no ditch digging yet. So we don't have any benefit of that project yet, and I know there were some concerns this last event, but they should have been the same as they were before the work. Once the ditches are dug, we should see the full benefit of this project. The contractor is also made a presence on the last roadway, which is Penny Street. They've done the saw cut of the concrete driveways to where another crew can come in and do the same, remove the concrete driveways, replace the pipes, pour the concrete drives back, and then dig the ditches. They did change their, Hard Rock did change their mode of operation in that they have one crew that's strictly going in and taking out the driveways, replacing the pipes, pouring the concrete drives back, and proceeding to the next roadway. A separate contractor is digging the ditches. So that's why there's a lag in the completed projects, like on Savoy Road right now. But Hard Rock is doing a very good job. They're progressing. They get a lot done in a day's time. I've been impressed with them. I think we've inconvenienced the homeowners as little as possible. They've used quick set concrete to where the homeowner is without use of the driveways no more than 3 to 4 days. So they've really done a good job, I think, in that regard. We have 2 areas where we have Bryant Hammond and Associates putting together a proposal for drainage improvement plans at the Lake Park subdivision off of LA 431 in Brittany, and in the Jefferson Crossing Charleston area off of LA 73 in Oak Grove. So they'll be putting a bid proposal for that for our consideration. Wallace Acres is another project that the plans are complete. Those plans are out for bid. It's going to be a drainage improvement project similar to the Savoy Road, Riverside Estate, Shealy, and Penny project. It's going to be the same in that we're going to be removing driveways, replacing driveway pipes, regrading the ditches, and improving everything within that development into the outfalls. There's going to be a mandatory pre-bid meeting on April 17th. Bids will be received until May 8th. Notice to proceed is usually received or issued around 8 to 10 weeks after that. So that project is it's on the way. I have representatives of 2 companies that are doing work for us. I'm going to let them give the update on it. The first one is HNTB, where Ms. Melissa Kennedy is here. We do have the supplement number 2 to the floodplain management plan has been issued to provide HNTB's input and support towards the revisions and final approvals of drainage ordinances and policies. And then she's going to report on the levy certification contract.
Thank you, Joey. Good evening. I don't have a lot more to say than what Joey already said. We were issued a supplement to continue our work on the drainage ordinance and drainage impact procedure, helping to get those documents revised and finally approved. There is a public meeting on April 15th to discuss the ordinance, potential ordinance revisions, so that's coming up. And also in the levy certification, I'm still available for consultation on the whole LOMAR, getting that completed through the system, as well as adoption of the flood damage reduction ordinance revisions. So that's it.
Any questions for Ms. Kennedy? Mr. Dawson?
Melissa, tell me about the supplement. I'm not sure, I don't see anything on here. That's something that was already issued, so what was that? Tell me again.
Yes, so back in the summer, back I think it was October, when we were still working with the drainage ordinance revisions and where they were going, and I was amended a contract to continue working on that through the end of the year with the assumption that the recommended revisions would get adopted by the end of the year. That didn't happen. I utilized those funds for various meetings, changes, et cetera. So to continue on with that, they supplemented the contract. There were available funds on the master contract to do that.
So that didn't come to us?
No.
It's just something that,
Correct.
I guess, Ron or somebody or William approved, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, we talked a little bit earlier. I'd like, you know, if you don't mind, if you'd like for me to give an update on you know, the floodways and the base flood elevations.
It's up to you. I can do it, or, okay.
Go ahead now.
So a meeting was held with FEMA and various entities, with parish administration, some council members. I think it was end of March, it's on a Thursday.
I think 2/7 March.
Okay, and so during that discussion, there's been concerns regarding the floodway designation on the new LOMAR. So during that discussion, FEMA agreed if the parish would send a letter, the parish along with City of Gonzales and Sorrento, to send a letter to FEMA requesting to not have the floodway included on the LOMAR, they would consider removing that. So that letter was prepared by the parish, submitted to FEMA, and apparently FEMA has responded, saying they are going to remove the floodway from the LOMAR maps. They need to take about 30 days to get the new maps and the whole process started again. So then after that, it has to go through an appeal period again. So that's a 90-day appeal period, and so somewhere between 4 and 6 months, we should be done with the LOMAR without floodway.
So the only thing I'd like to add to that is we had to get letters from the town of Sorrento and the city of Gonzales, and the mayors of both of those municipalities were very cooperative, and we got those promptly. Actually, that meeting was Thursday, and we sent the material to FEMA on Monday morning. So I'm curious also, you know, a little bit of forensics. You always look back, but, you know, did you guys look and see? It was always my appreciation that we were told that the floodways had to be included in along with the base flood elevation changes. And then, you know, I was a bit surprised, I guess, like everybody else in the room, when FEMA says it's not required to include the floodways. Did you guys do any?
When we did the modeling, when we read the regulations, we interpreted that because this parish is considered a high-risk parish, and usually it's recommended to do the floodway, so we interpreted that the floodway should be required. So
HNTB did that
is correct.
interpretation, and FEMA never said that to us.
No, but they never said that specifically.
Okay.
But they reviewed everything that we submitted, and that was never issue or a comment from them. So we just continued proceeding.
So at what point was the parish told that we were doing this almost voluntarily?
I am not sure at when that occurred.
Okay.
I think might have been on the call with FEMA that Thursday afternoon.
But you guys knew all along, because you made that decision yourselves to pursue these floodways, because you were thinking that. Am I listening incorrectly?
We interpreted that it was required. That's why we pursued
Okay.
that way. It wasn't an intentional to deceive anybody
Yeah.
or do anything
No,
nefarious.
I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just trying to understand where all this, where was the genesis of all this,
Mm-hmm.
so that, it won't happen to us again.
Okay.
I don't have anything else. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Kluan.
Thank you, Melissa. And Bill, I just want to confirm why, you had the microphone, is that we sent it, the meeting was very successful. We sent it to them and we got confirmation that FEMA accepted it.
That's correct. And they gave us this schedule of, it's gonna take 30 days to reproduce the Lomar, 90-day, and have to open the comment period. This time, hopefully, we'll tell the affected residents about the changes, and then, be approved, as she said, probably.
Yeah, and you talked about forensic and hindsight and all that, is that, through that exercise, we're able to relieve some of the folks, you feel like on the Hodgson Lane, some other places.
Well, see, we have Mr. Gotros here tonight, and we
Yes.
have people that, absolutely everybody that was affected that was on Hodgson Lane there, they will be removed. There will be no floodways at this point in time in Ascension Parish. Now, I think we all understand that may, most probably will happen at some point in time, and we need to start looking at that, but we certainly weren't prepared for this at this point in time, and we weren't prepared to have a part of our parish that was subject to these floodways, and so it would have meant part of our parish would have been under one ordinance and the rest of the parish under another. It would have been just,
And that's where I'm going,
There you
because
go.
like I said in prior meetings, I know where the next floodway is. I think I live in it, okay? In all honesty.
Yeah.
We got two of the major drainage canals that are heading for Marvin Bro, I can throw a rock on either way and hit them, so, Melissa, not to be picky, but what is the magnitude of the floodways, the costs, adding that to your workload? Was that $5 more? If you'd never worked on the floodways, was that a high magnitude of order to try to get that work together?
I don't know that I could answer that directly.
I
The guy
understand.
who does the modeling, Mike Herzig, is not here. He'll be at the public meeting on Monday.
Yeah.
But, it's just part of the process to do the evaluation. What additional or difference
Well,
was it, I'm not sure.
I want to reiterate whether, we're still around or not, but whenever this does happen again, and soon FEMA is going to change those maps, it's just a matter of time, and things like that, that this is probably going to end up in a position of, not as a request, but as a directive, requirement. And so, we need to be looking at that and keeping that in mind as we go forward with whatever ordinances we have for where we're going with the parish. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dips.
Mr. Aaron.
I think one of the concerns that, as we've already heard, is that eventually we're going to have to deal with this floodway issue. Are there ways to minimize the width of these floodways that we can start looking at now?
You have to understand what the floodway designation is first before you can decide how you can address properties that are in it. So you still have to go through the process of figuring out what that is to be able to say what can you do to change it.
I guess my question is it can be changed though, is that correct? That once we determine what the floodway is, there are certain steps that we may be able to take in the future with regard to channeling, straightening, widening actually?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just as long as there's something that we can do in the future. The other question that I have is, I think what was done though, we also determined that about 1,200 people did benefit from this. Are they still going to receive that benefit?
Yes.
and they're got more insurance rates?
Yes,
Okay, so the overall, once we eliminated the issue with the floodways, I think we saw a real benefit to a whole bunch of people.
correct.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Kennedy?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more presentation by Ms. Kimberly Cole to address the two projects that GSA has on working for the parish, the Fish Bayou project and the Laurel Ridge levee.
Good evening. I'll start with Fish Bayou because it's a little shorter. We are still waiting for surveying. It should happen sometime this week for the servitudes that are proposed by the landowner and by the parish to work towards an agreement for servitude donation. Also, I was really hoping to have the scenic river permit today, but Wildlife and Fisheries did make it all the way to the top, ready for signature, and the department head had a question about the gate operating plan. So we've addressed the question, and it's ready for signing again. It's on his desk, and we were told last week it should be signed, so hopefully this week, with the way permitting agencies go, it should be ready.
Thank you.
So moving on to Laurel Ridge Levee Extension. I attempted to reach out today, but our office emails weren't working, and I wasn't aware of that. So I was trying to coordinate a meeting for this Thursday between any of the councilmen that would like to be there, and Ron and Joey and William, to go over the project schedule we've developed for the levee extension. We do have 30% preliminary plans ready for submittal and review, and I was going to go over them with whoever would like to be present.
What percent?
30% preliminary. So we have all of our geotechnical information, typical sections, plan and profiles, cross-sections, sheet indexes, a lot of good stuff on this submittal ready for y'all to review. Want to make sure that you're comfortable with the direction we're going with the plans before we go too far. Also discuss the project schedule and make sure y'all are comfortable and familiar with it. We're going to go over it with you, give you 2 weeks to review and give us any comments you may have, and then we'll move on to the next phase. Also, we'll go over critical path forward and any permitting issues we foresee in the future or any modifications we'll need to make as far as an extension or anything.
Good deal. Right. Thank you for the update. We needed it.
Thank you.
And I would be very interested in that meeting.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Kimberly?
No, just our gratitude for her continuing to report positively. Thank you so much.
Kim, just real quick on the gate operation. Ron, who's doing the operation manual on this? Who's working on this?
On where?
On Fish
Fish
Bayou?
Bayou.
Yeah.
On fish,
Yeah.
we had to submit what we currently operate in the Frog Bayou, but they're
Right.
developing a plan for this particular site that has to be approved by the Corps. And so we don't have that plan approved and stamped to know what it's going to be yet. They're going to tell us what that will be.
We have a preliminary plan based on the H&H modeling. Basically, we were trying to figure out when we should open and close the gates, which would have the quickest impact to the swamp, as in reducing the water as quickly as possible without increasing it on Manchac and affecting EBR. So those are the limits we had to work with, and we have a plan together. The question that we received was just saying that we're not going to impact the swamp and the trees, and that's the purpose of the project, so.
Just my previous, with Henderson Bayou, Wildlife and Fishery, what else are they, you said it got all the way up the ladder. What were some of the other questions?
One of them had to do with replanting trees that are taken out during construction, how we will handle the maintenance servitudes, what will be cleared, what will be replanted. We added some riprap for erosion control and to slow down the water to reduce the impact on Manchac. So it just basically had to do with the trees in the area and the impact on Bayou Manchac.
Good, okay. Any other questions? Not, thank you. Oh, Mr. Cooley.
None for Kim. I got for Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You finished, Joe?
Well, then I want to refer, can I
You
refer
finished?
back?
Okay. Go ahead. Mr. Cooley.
Yeah, real quick, and Ron might be able to answer it. You talked about the projects, Penny Street, Savoy, Riverside, and all. What about Buxton Road? It was my understanding that Buxton Road was in this. Buxton Road.
No, Buxton, they're digging that today, and tying into the contractor's work. But it was several years ago, the parish went in Buxton and already enlarged their pipes along their driveways and did a change out, but the ditches are silted in. So they do have a crew on site today digging that out.
That's what I
Yes,
wanted to make
sir.
sure.
No, we're gonna tie into what the contractors have done, at Riverside and Buxton. And there's 2 cross drains there, and we're making sure that we try to get these road ditches of Buxton below that and tie it in. And then in addition to that, I have Ms. DeOrman researching the servitudes off-road towards the pump.
Right.
And I'd like to go that way while we're there.
While you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
Just
gonna
go
try
all
to
the
do
way.
everything we can.
You're not
as
talking
far
about,
as we can go.
it's not a long distance anyway.
No, but we just need to make sure that landowner that we on point with him, and we'll try to get that done.
Give me a holler if you need some help with that.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Guess if, anybody have anything with Joey, or I got a few things I'd like to go over.
Sure, Ron, go ahead.
Okay, so as you all know, the Thursday event with the rain was, last meeting, Dempsey, you told me we were gonna have April rain showers. I don't think that was a shower, but, we were ready. We actually had all 7 pumps online, ready to go at Marvin Bro. We enacted that Thursday. We started off with 4 pumps and then ran 6 pumps for several hours. And then, also Sorrento was down, and we actually manned it during the day and started pumping it as well. And so both pump stations there were manned and in operation all through the event. Henderson Bayou never saw elevations high enough to enact the gates or pumps, and the water continued to flow out. First thing in the morning before the rain hit, we went to Frog Bayou, closed the locks there, and got that operation taken care of. And then I guess around midday, we got reports of how much rainfall had taken place. It was in the neighborhood of 4.5 inches by noon. And so it was mainly from 8:30 in the morning till noon. We had areas that saw right at 5 inches in that time frame, and it created some pooling and backing up in low-lying areas, and you did have some streets with some water on them. We had to enact Southwood pumps, Sorrento tractor pumps, Astro Land, Buxton tractors pumps. So basically every pumping station we had was rolling Thursday. So it was a good drill to go through, and our guys came through, and none of these events happened without them out there. And I want them to know that we appreciate everything they do. Supervisors on down to the bottom guy. And I feel like they did a great job and came through. Matter of fact, they're still out. We're trying to equalize Marvin Bro, but the backside's still 2-3. We're at 1-8 right now, and we got clouds out there. So while we're here, sitting here talking, they're still out there watching. So they're doing a great job at that. Other than that, the routine work orders, I get into that. They sent out a report on that. If you have any questions, I'd like to one-on-one maybe call me later, and we'll go into details on them. But we do have some bigger projects. When we get to a road failure, a wooden bridge that's on a parish-maintained right-of-way road, we don't put bridges back if we can help it on the roads. We go back with box culverts. And we're doing one of those projects right now on Bang-Ficklin Road, and replacing that with permanent infrastructure with boxes. And they're currently on that road. Their next project is on 929 at, I guess you say just south of Parker Road. There's a crossing right there that's extremely undersized, and it actually calls for a box culvert. There's metal pipes there now, so that'll be a permanent structure. So that crew continually installs those failure areas with permanent things for the future. The shredder machine is currently on the upper branches of New River by Methanex plant. There's some beaver dams that were in there causing a lot of problems. They busted those out last week, and while they were there, they're shredding a little portion of New River there, and that will complete the shredding of New River, and then they will be moving from there to the Santa Maw outfall ditch behind the Santa Maw High School. We have a Corps permit to go in and shred that ditch, and that's where they'll be going next. The major drainage crews are currently on the Shadow Creek, I guess you say west of Roddy Road. They're digging that big channel back out, just doing some maintenance, cleaning on it, nothing really enlarging, but just shaping and cleaning that area back up. Muddy Creek, we got the wrap in for the bank stabilization, but it's just it's too wet to roll the dump trucks off-road to go tackle that. So as soon as conditions dry up, that's a big project that they're trying to get underway. Other than that, we have about 10 regular work orders rolling right now, but we have some crews that were in the pumping operation, so the numbers are a little down right now, but they're merging back into daily operations. So other than that, I have another presentation, but we'll get to in a later item. And that about concludes my report, unless you guys have anything.
Mr. Lawler.
Ron, I just want to tell you thank you. On Sunday afternoon, I started text messaging you about some issues along Old Jefferson. I didn't expect to get a response on a Sunday afternoon. I figured you were with your family or something, so I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
We had some people who had some issues along there, and you responded right away. And I know you're helping get some things done with the state, because I think we kind of explained that when I talked to them about it, that's on a state highway. That's not necessarily parish work, but you were able to get some of it done, some of it talking to the state. I just appreciate you working on a Sunday.
Yes, sir, no worries. And like you said, it's their primary responsibility, but in an emergency, we did go with some inmates and unplug a few pipes there. They have a lot of live oak trees in that area, and they just caked up the pipes, and it was a mess. So we did go out and try to open a few pipes by hand. And you asked about the mowing of the grass. We do have the state contract for mowing. Those guys have already completed one rotation of the state highways this season, and they're starting their second one, and they are on Bluff Road right now. They're just starting that. Later the week, they'll be on Perkins Road, and then they're going to go hit Highway 73 from the parish line going through the parish. So that request hopefully will be addressed in backing of cleaning out the pipes.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Randy.
Ron, and I was going to talk to you. I want to thank you on what we talked about, working with the state on some of the issues that you and I talked about on Stringer Bridge Road.
Yes, sir.
And State Representative Johnny Berthelot, that's his area, and he's willing to work with us any way he can on it. If we
Okay.
need to get work in conjunction with the state to get a crossing wherever we need it, and also to get those culverts cleaned out. This is about the third round that we've had on those same
Yes, sir.
set of culverts in that same small area.
And I think the ditch
from
cleaning
Bus-
out would
Bus
be,
Road
that's right.
back to George Lambert.
Aaron with the state, he did respond on a weekend, just like we work. He works for the state, and he definitely committed to trying to get that dug out. And it would be great if they do it. I think it'd be a huge benefit to that landowner right there. So we'll continue to work with them.
Thank you.
Ms. John. Anybody?
Good job, Ron.
I do have one more thing I forgot to mention.
Sure.
Mr. Dawson and Pelican Point, we have executed notice to proceed with T. Baker Smith. As soon as I got the contract executed, we noticed to proceed with them. They sent it in locates today, and he said they should start surveying work within the end of the week or beginning of the next to get this thing moving in the direction of putting a bid spec package together.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
William, you had anything to add to that?
Yes, sir. I too express my appreciation for all the men and women who worked over the rain event, because they're the backbone of protecting the parish, and we are most grateful to them.
Sure.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to number 7. I have a speaker, Mr. Matt Percy.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you know, my name is Matthew Percy. I'm the appointed attorney for the town of Sorrento. And to put it frankly, the town of Sorrento is in desperate need of roadside ditch clearing. As you know, we recently sent a demand requesting for ditch clearing services within the borders of the town of Sorrento. Our hope is that we could come to some sort of agreement amicably in lieu of litigation, whereby the district can put forth funds or take steps to begin roadside ditch clearing in the town city limits, or town limits, excuse me. So looking at number 7, I've noticed that it looks like there's going to be an addition of funds regarding a roadside ditch maintenance agreement between On Grade Construction and the district, adding an additional $1 million. So in short, my question is, are any of these funds in the newly requested $1 million going to be allocated for ditch clearing in Sorrento? or any funds at all for that matter? And if not, my question would be, what is the actual basis for the district refusing to clean roadside ditches within municipalities located within its border?
You finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 7, approval to amend master contract. Mr. Ron Salvo.
I would like to go ahead and take this time to do a little presentation in support of this item.
Sure.
So I'll kind of give you a little bit of history of how do we get where we are today. So we're going to go over the drainage maintenance review of East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District and what currently that entails. So we start off with a basic map of the parish. And back years ago, say 10 years ago, we started off with a very, very basic work order system. It was pretty much a sentence that you can document work within. Basically an address, a name, and dig a ditch was the extent of what you could do with it. It wasn't much more than Excel spreadsheets. So that was the parish as a whole, and then what's in it is the off-road waterways. You're looking at 239 miles of major waterways and roughly 640 miles of minor waterways. We consider major waterways, be it New River, Black Bayou, Severio Canal, Bayou Manchac, that caliber of canal. And then you get in the minor waterways. Sorry.
Your time is up, sir.
I need a little more than that. The minor waterways we consider is the everything from your major ditches, like the examples of a couple of those would be the Buret Ditch, the Goudine, Henderson Bayou, those upper branches, Bird Allen Ditch, that caliber, and then all the tributaries that go into those. We'll consider the minor waterways of the parish. And then you get into the roads, the parish roads in the maintenance program. We have 500 miles of roads, give or take a little bit, and you figure a ditch on both sides of those roads is rough estimates about 1,000 miles of roadside ditch in the parish limits. You add a layer of the roads and the ditches together, the maps get really, really busy. And you add up the mileage altogether, you're looking at about 2,000 miles of ditch, to maintain within the district. Some of the challenges we had with the previous workflows that we used in the parish, we didn't really have any structure applied. It was always a one master list for all of the work orders. And the challenges we ran into that was, well, you have X amount of crews, you had X amount of work orders on the top of the list moving, and then you may have had some come in brand new that might have been a priority, and those jobs moved, but the body of the list never really moved, and it sat for a really long, long time. So that was an issue that we've noticed. And then the system limitations was it didn't put out very good data, reports, and things of that nature. Some of the risk, which will continue no matter what we do, is unanticipated priorities, be it a road failure, a weather event, a pumping event, hence this weekend. Another characteristic of this was we used to have a pool of equipment. All the drainage equipment was everybody's equipment, and you had different supervisors that had different crews, and they would have a particular machine, and when they finished that work order, they made it another type of machine. Well, another crew might have already had it. So it was very inefficient way of work. They need to document and preserve data. Drainage servitudes, gained today, stored for the future staff is a very, very important thing, and we'll get into in a minute. Less accountability, and another issue was turnover, which will carry over to any system we have. So we applied work breakdown structure to Ascension Parish. And what we did was create task districts is what we call them, and they're known as, and we created 4 of them on the East Bank, and we were able to do with that, the gains from that is develop workflows for each department or division within the parish, and we also have workflow charts. And then we were able to divide the divisions into organizational charts. We were able to allocate equipment and staff to these quadrants. Accountability is much more clear, who's responsible for what area in the parish. And communication is huge, from the administration on to the staff within the divisions, to know who they report to, and there shouldn't be any question about who's working for who. And here's an example of a chart that was built to reflect the quadrants. This is the vegetation group. And if you notice at the bottom, you have 55 employees. It sounds like a good bit of employees, but once you start looking at how they're broken down, you have one supervisor per quadrant, and you say you got 5 supervisors, and one of those supervisors does the state contract work. And he also, when his group gets there, for instance, Corner View Road. When you cut Corner View Road as a state highway, New River parallels it. It just doesn't make sense to have a state contract to cut the right-of-way 10 feet from the blacktop, but you got 50 feet to the canal. Cut it all while you're there. And so those guys work strategically in that manner, and we try to cut everything we can while we're in an area. The parish lots, they have a guy that's all he does is cut the grass, does a great job on the parish lots. There's roughly 30 of them. Labor crew, we have a lot of weed eater work and shovel work. That's what those guys do. We have that boat crew, and I got some pictures of stuff they do. And then inmates, we have 2 crews of inmates. One we've had a really long time, which is hand labor work with shovels and rakes and weed eaters and that things like that. And then we have that new implemented litter program, and there's a group of inmates that provide that service. So that's the vegetation group, an example of a chart that we were able to utilize. Now, how can we be more efficient? Some of the things we've implemented are more progressive workflow systems by targeting those group of works that can be tested with pilots. The roadside contract was a pilot that we tried, and we'll get to that in a minute. How else can we do it with servitude tracking? That's a huge thing that we're going to need for the future, and we'll get into that in a minute. We can update our workflows continuously and reallocate resources as needed to be as efficient as we can. We want to implement results of pilot programs as we see as positives. Wherever we see a pilot benefit in the parish, we really want to capitalize on that. So getting into the servitude documentation, it seems like that's a key to the future for these maintenance of these off-road ditches. I really want to give kudos to the right-of-way people that we have on board. Ms. Diorman this is a lot of her work, and it's a lot of diligent work on this, and I think it's going to pay off for the parish in volumes later in the future. And so we developed a GIS layer in the work order system where every right-of-way that we get today is uploaded on a GIS layer, and when you zoom in on an aerial map, you see those green areas are highlighted. That's ditches that we have servitude on. So they'll highlight that and actually put dimensions in. And what's really cool about this is you can click on the ditch in the GIS layer and attachments pop up. So if the guys in the future need to know if we got a servitude, this tells them, yeah, you do. And then you can go to the attachments, and there's your plat filed at the clerk of court with the actual servitudes on that ditch.
Ron, could you hold up just a second? Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Yes, you go back to the last, because I just want to get a good understanding of it. So we've got an area where we have some green up by Faithful Cemetery, which is, I guess, on the right side of that, and I don't know what y'all can see up there. And then you can see a ditch runs, and then there's another green area. So we lack servitude in that area, correct?
Well, I would assume
Let's
yes.
just say, for instance.
Yes.
So what does that mean for the area that we lack servitude? Can we go in there and do the drainage work?
We need to go talk to them and try to get it.
We can try and get it.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of, so I understand it also, but it's also the public understands that there are areas where we lack servitude and we can't
Yes.
go in there. So if we clear a whole bunch of drainage ditch all through there, and all of a sudden we've got somebody refusing to let us on their land, that's going to cause a backup, correct?
That is a challenge. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But if you look really close at this map, you brought it back up, you look to the bottom right, you'll see some little small green lines in there. Those are very small ditches that we have servitude on. So everything that we're doing now, we're trying to document for the future. Yeah. And what you'll have over time is hopefully a good GIS data layer that we can continually build on, but utilize the different methods later in the future if needed.
And these guys will have the access to this out in the field. So they'll be looking at their iPads and they can see, we have a servitude here, we can go ahead and clean this out.
While y'all on this, Mr.
Yeah,
Simon.
we hate to be interruptive here, but you're stimulating a lot of thought, obviously. A follow-up to Mr. Lawler's excellent question. If you can go back to that map. So does this also mean that if you have servitude, such as we see around the cemetery that Mr. Lawler pointed out, and you, let's say, dig that ditch out, now they're flowing real good, but if we need to go up or downstream from there in a ditch that we lack servitude of, now you're adding more water on them people than had before, and they're upset. Yes or no?
I would say it's unique to the situation. It depends
But
on
it could
where
be.
you're at.
So,
Yes,
in
I
theory.
wouldn't say it couldn't be.
So,
yeah.
again, he's looking for the public to understand, which is what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have the servitude, it's a problem. Now, I guess the question becomes, how active are we in trying to do something about that?
Well, take the Wallace Acres project that we had before. We had probably 90% of all the servitude we need, but we could not get them all. So some people just would not give us a servitude. So we had to go back in, got the engineers, and come up with some alternate ways of doing it. And if we need a servitude, we have people that go out and talk to the landowners and try to get servitude from them. And then sometimes it's more than that. We need right of entry, and
Well, William, let me,
it's a complicated process.
let me ask it this way then. So when you do go out and you ask these people that have the right of way and we don't have the servitude, how often, hopefully you're going to say more often than not, do they say, yeah, come on and dig the ditch anyway?
I would say they do a very good job of getting servitude, sir.
Like 90, 95% of the time? So it's not a problem, yet. We just have to ask.
Oh, that's a challenge, but I think that we have a very, very productive team with the, we only have
I
two.
mean, you're going to
two
complain,
right-of-ways.
but you won't let us dig the ditch. You know, your complaints are useless.
And just to add another layer to that, the issue is not always somebody refusing access to give us a servitude. Sometimes the issue is identifying who the landowner of the property is. It may be in succession. You may not
Well,
have
I'm not
somebody
asking
you
about
can
servitude
give a
as much as just coming
from.
on to do it and dig. Like, if you have to have permission to go on.
Yes, that's.
Right. They're letting you do
basically
that.
have a whole effort of communication to even get to somebody's ditch. And it's a lot of footwork to coordinate this off-road work. It's
And
tremendous.
like Cody said, the first step is actually identifying who you have to talk to.
Yeah, I interrupt him. I'm sure that's what he's going to say. I've heard it before, yeah. So it's more of a labor-intense thing than it is, though, of actually getting a positive result in the end.
Very labor intensive.
And I
Got it.
think
All right.
I think you'll see the comparison in a minute
Okay.
between the two different services.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I needed a little bit longer than 3 minutes.
So granted, let's hear this.
So I think you guys may have seen this map before. This was brought to you when we started with the contractors. Okay, this is what it was, and I just took the time to document how many work orders were on the book for roadside ditches when we started with the contractors. It was a total of 231 work orders. And if you look down at the bottom, you'll notice I ran a query in 2018. There was 876 tasks created for roadside ditch maintenance, and it shows in the books 904 were actually closed out. So you did a little bit more work than what came in on the roadside ditches. Now, if you pay attention to the map, like I said, when we brought the contractors on, we told you guys we were going to work strategically going to the east and work a grid-like fashion with these crews.
All the little lines are work orders. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
clear to everybody.
The red lines are actual work orders.
Oh, okay, I wonder what that was.
Yeah. So I'll back up and throw that arrow back in. When we said we were going to start, we told you guys we were going to start in the southeast section and we were going to head east in a grid-like fashion. And we wanted to bring on a second crew. And we would bring that crew on and start in the north quadrant, northeast quadrant, going to the north. That was in October or November of 2018. And then since then, you can see that the work orders have really, the parish is lit up with blue that has been addressed by the contractors. But I want to point out the northwest quadrant and the southwest quadrant. So even some more work has been done since this map was built. You're down to almost 14 or 15 road work orders in the Prairieville area. In the northwest area, you're down to 15 roadside ditch work orders. And in the southwest, I think we're down to about 2. So then we look at this, we did what we said we were going to do. We continued going east in a grid-like fashion. We continued going north in a grid-like fashion. So what's the plan moving forward, right? We keep doing what we said we were gonna do with the 2 crews. We talked to the contractor and said, man, look, this program's going really well, but we got bigger problems. We got off-road drainage, and we got a bunch of numbers of off-road drainage work orders. So we got to talking about what can we do different? And this was one of the things we started off, what can we do different? We brought on contractors. Well, now we're looking at the off-road drainage. We need to prioritize that. We know that that is where the ditch maintenance needs to go next. So we told you guys we're going to capitalize on what we can, get these services turned over for the public, and try to get a turnover time that is, I'm seeing, very, very close to being achieved.
And this was prompted by y'all's, at the last drainage meeting, y'all said, come to us with a plan, give us a schedule, tell us how you're gonna do it. So this is what we came up with.
So talking with the contractor, we asked him, can you get more staff? He said yes. So plan moving forward, we want to continue as we did, and then we want to bring on a second crew. Arrow at the bottom, attack the ones at the bottom, and bring on another crew headed to the north and just wipe these roadside work orders out. And we think that we can do it. The contractor's confident in it. We like his work so far. Have they had hiccups here and there? Yeah. But I think any kind of program, you're going to have a few bumps in the road. But overall, we think that this is a plan that you guys as the board can invest to the parish residents and get a service performance on these roadside work orders that is very much achievable, and I think they'll be extremely satisfied with the turnover and the performance on this in the long run.
And the big difference is we don't have to go out and get servitude and right-of-ways on all this. This is just straight digging and hardly any paperwork, and we just need one supervisor to supervise these crews to do this. And so that's going to allow us to do the next phase of Ron's plan.
So here's the off-road work, and here's a baseline. It's where we're at.
So hang on, wait. Oh, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, backing up several slides, on October 31st, that showed 231 total roadside, not offside, roadside ditches. And then you showed us a slide on the 29th of just last month, I guess that's March.
Yes.
That's 5 months later, so the people are
Yes.
understanding this. We went from 231 work orders back in October, the last day of October, to 133 5 months later, which is a net reduction of about 100, we're almost halfway there.
And Doc, you brought up a
And
very
so
good point
then the
on
next
that.
slide you're saying, I'm getting to a question, is if we want to even accelerate it, and I assume that's the $1 million bump you're going to be asking for tonight, we can add additional crews concentrating further south and headed east, and additional crew concentrating further east and heading north, and get this thing knocked out within, obviously, a calendar year.
By November, we think.
Yep.
Yes, sir. I think
Okay,
that.
just wanted to be sure everybody understands that.
But I want to make sure and highlight this too. You're dealing with parish employees here as well, and we definitely want them to know the value in their work. And I want to highlight that the west part of the 44 was all done by them. And you brought up a point of 133 work orders left. But I want to make it a point that when we get a work order on the road, and we task them to go do it, say George Lambert Road, for instance, there was work orders on that. They dug the entire George Lambert Road from Gold Place Road to Stringer Bridge.
Right.
The next task is to go from Stringer Bridge to 429. So they're not going to dig a section from one address to another.
They're not digging the complaint, they're digging
They
a much,
digging,
so the public understands, a much longer
That's
stretch of
right.
road just because you're on that road. It
That's
makes
right,
sense to
sir.
stay on it, clean it out.
We're trying to get the maximum bang for your
Got it.
buck.
You make a pond if you just dig the complaint.
I got it. It's kind of like my earlier question. You can make a problem for the guy downstream if you go ahead and just fix this person's complaint.
Yes, sir. And then.
Public, you all listen to that? You fix one spot, you can create other problems, and it's not the remedy.
No, it's just, there are hiccups. I will say, like I said, there's
Got it.
nothing perfect about this, but we're trying as hard as we can as the parish employees to serve the public.
Okay, off-road, go ahead.
So off-road is the biggest challenge. And so there's the numbers, and that's the baseline. And what we want to do is look at number 7 item in a minute, is to really capitalize on the pilot program. There's a difference between this type of work and the road work. There's a reason that it was able to be capitalized on and moved. You can do it and work it almost any time. Soft road work is, you can do it when it's wet, but you gotta go talk. You gotta get out there and meet people and get them to, okay, you're going on their property, and you're at their leisure, you know? So we gotta work with these people and come to agreements and try to get these things done. So we came up with a plan to do that, but you can see on the bottom, you had 641 in 2018, and you only completed 501. So you're falling a little behind on your off-road drainage. So this is a tremendous, I guess, request in the parish is your off-road drainage. So we get into org charts for drainage. This is the current structure. If you really get down into it, pay attention to the bottom. You got 91 employees currently working within the drainage division. That's 7 supervisors, 3 managers, and an assistant director over the drainage works of it. So you get down to the summary of it. What do we have in there? You have 5 roadside ditch crews, 7 off-road crews, 2 crews, all they do is fix sinkholes, and mainly that's in your subdivisions with curb and gutter and pipes and things of that nature.
Pelican Point.
And then the 2 major drainage crews, and you have 1 specialty project crew, which that's the ones that change out these box culvert crossings, things like that, and you got a shredder crew. So that's the guts of the org chart as it is right now within the drainage division. So what we're proposing to do is restructure this, a little bit different mindset, and what we're thinking we can do is take this on-grade pilot program and put it to an investment long-term. And I heard it said time and time again that we did this to catch up, all right? And I agree with that, no doubt. But I think that when we catch up on the roadside work orders, we're not caught up. We got these off-road work orders we need to catch up. So if we sustain this pilot program and keep it moving, currently you have 17 employees that dig with roadside equipment. And it takes a lot more staff and effort to dig on the road than it does off-road. You got traffic flagging, coordination, and things of that nature. So we're looking at taking those employees, pulling them back from digging on the roads. On-grade construction has done a great job. We feel like they can handle the work. And what I want to point out is the bottom section of the org chart. Let's take everything on the roadside and turn it over to this contract work. And with that, that involves 2 programs. You have the ditch maintenance where they dig the ditches, but we also have the culvert contract. There's 2 separate contracts. When residents call in and want us to go set a pipe to make sure we do it correctly, we have an inspector on board, and he's within that group, that if they call in and they meet the criteria of the policy that we've generated, that if they buy their material up to 40 linear foot on their first-time access driveway, the parish goes and supplies the labor for it, but they have to buy the dirt and buy the pipe, and we have the contractor on board that'll go and set the pipe. That now has eliminated a crew that used to have to do that with a 5-man crew. So we put those guys to work, but that contract and the roadside contract would go into a merge with the pavement division. And the reason for that is the pump trucks would go along with it to blow out the culverts after the contract work is completed. But the mindset of this was, we also told you in the beginning when we implemented this, we wanted to communicate better between departments and get better at being more efficient with one project marrying into another project. So the roadside ditch work can be utilized and coordinated with pavement management projects ahead of the game. So if they're going to go and repave some roads, they can go in with the contractors first, get all the infrastructure fixed and the drainage right before you put road stuff out there, and it prevents you having brand new asphalt and then the drainage crew comes right on top of it. So you put the cart before the horse with this being done a little bit with that effort. And so what does that mean? The benefits of it, you're going to get 14 off-road drainage crews versus 7. The 17 current employees that staff the roadside efforts now would staff the new 7 crews that would be created, reducing the amount of employees that you would need to go out and hire to make this effort happen. The liability goes down for us working on the road and be off-road a lot, away from power lines and traffic. Employees will have a lot more safe atmosphere to work in. The ability for the management to focus on what they need to prioritize. Right now, they're having to coordinate, call in locates, talk to people on the road and the off-road. So the managers are really some key employees here, and they do a great job. They got a tough battle with all the notification processes and coordination to do that. This would cut down on that to just the off-road. The flexibility of the budgets or the projects within paving management, we talked about that. Budget sustainability. We have the ability to adopt this budget and make it work for us. So right now, it's the front end of it, and we do have to invest in it. But long-term, we can get the baselines established to how much would the funding need to be to keep this program implemented, to keep these employees focused on off-road work. So some of the actions we need to do. We're looking at doubling what we have currently off-road with crews, so we're thinking we would need 2 more at least right-of-way agents to fill in and help out that effort of notification. Couple of labor positions, 1 project manager to help out with the merge from the drainage to the pavement management. We're going to lose a position there, and we need to fill it. The grade all machines. Current road crews use grade all machines to dig the road ditches. We have 4 of them that are currently digging. We want to justify shutting those machines down. But that doesn't mean that they will not be cycled. It means that they will not be the primary use of the digging of the ditches. These machines will be cycled when we are on call for getting trees off the road, numerous things along the road. You get calls all the time. So they will be cycled with that. And you definitely need them in a hurricane response to open these parish roads up and get the traffic back open. So we do not recommend getting rid of them. We want to keep them. Yes, sir, Randy.
Oh, no, I'm gonna wait till you finish.
Okay.
Chair's gonna recognize me.
I got you.
I hope some
He's
point.
been holding it up long enough, man.
It'll be brief, though, I guarantee. It'll be brief, Randy's always
Yeah.
brief.
So, parking these grade alls, though, does not mean that we want to get rid of them. We do need to buy 4 of the little mid-size excavators. It seems to be the choice of machine for operator. Not just anybody can get on a grade all and run it. So these excavator-style machines is the more commonly known as to operators what equipment they'll be running. And we would like to buy them with rubber tracks on them, where if it's just downright you can't get off-road, we can still find work on the road to do. There is tons of maintenance needs to be done, and we can keep people busy with buying that type of equipment. We need 2 pickup trucks, but they were already budgeted, and we have them ordered already. And the last one I just said, they'll be able to be used on-road and off-road. So we hope that moving forward, we can get your support on doing this.
Great job, Mr. Blue.
Yeah, Ron and William, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and jump up front and say personally, I'm one of them that beats you up is the most about the off-road ditches, okay, in our area. We depend on them, you know, and so talking to some employees of the parish and you know, and all that, and, you know, scuttlebutt back and forth, you know, put it out in the front. There was, you know, people worried about getting laid off. And in all our discussions, there's no plans that anybody's getting laid off. Matter of fact, you're gonna put people to work, and you probably might end up needing a few more people.
Sir, I'll tell you one thing right now. I came up through the ranks with those guys.
That's good.
And there ain't a one of them I don't need. There's not a one of them. Now, can they be more efficient and we need to get on a couple of them's tail every now and then? They got that out there, but they come through for this parish when we need them. And I hope that we can rise them up and get them out of those trends and work a few things out and get everybody bought into this and move this program forward.
There's more work than all of our parish employees can do. I mean, if we had a bigger budget, we would put more people out there. So nobody needs to fear that they're going to get laid off, because that is the exact opposite of what we're thinking.
You know, it wasn't that many years ago, we got beat up right there at the podium, on the streets and everywhere. You know, well, why you want more tax? Well, why you want your tax renewed? You're sitting there with 20 million, 29 million, whatever in the bank, you know, blah, blah, blah. Let's get out and put some people to work. So, you know, been working on that for a long time. And then we very graciously asked the people of East Ascension Parish to renew the tax. And they very graciously did, but they asked us to be accountable for it and get out there and get the damn work done. Okay, and we asked you guys to come up with a plan, and you did. On $1 million, it's a lot. $1 million is $1 million no matter what. I ran the numbers on labor, on aggregate number based on markup and you know, and what our employees make. And it's almost a clean offset, almost a wash on 20 employees, okay? And I see you kind of going in that 20 direction right now anyway. But, and we don't have the responsibility for the equipment. Any type of burdens of maintenance that goes with the equipment that these guys are doing on the road, okay? I've been questioned about the cost per foot, because it wasn't that long after these guys got the contract, I had at least 5 people that had all kind of track codes and stuff call me, you know, man, I didn't know about that. That's a sweet deal, you know, whatever. Apparently it was bid. That was the bidder, and that was the price that came in.
And we'll, you know, if we can keep this program going forward, we'll rebid this in the future, and, you know, hopefully we'll get a better price. I'm not sure we get much better price. We kind of priced it out ourselves. We thought the $7 per foot was pretty good.
Yeah.
But if I may, Ron and I went around prior to the vote, and we spoke to all kinds of different groups. And you're right, they graciously renewed the tax, and when we gave our talks, we were met with very positive comments about doing work. But that's what they wanted. They wanted to see their tax dollars put to work on keeping them safe, and us taking care of the drainage issues. And then everybody says, run government like a business. Well, I think that's exactly what we've been able to do here. We took the most basic task that is the least paperwork, is the least complicated, and we gave it to a private contractor so that we could take the most difficult task and give it to our parish employees, who we have the ultimate confidence in the ability to get it done. And this gives us a lot of flexibility, because now we can go through the work orders, we can identify where we need to be when it rains, we can identify where we need to be when it's dry, and if it's impossible to work at any other times, we can still go back and coordinate with the road contractor and dig on roads as well. So we have flexibility to do everything we need to do with this setup, only this allows us to allocate our resources where we need them most.
Well, once again, I'm saying the people asked us to go do the work, and we got the money to do it, so let's go do it. And I want to say, going in, it's hard to find dry weather in our area, or dry ground. You could have dry weather for a week and the ground's still wet as hell, okay? So there's going to be places where we're going to go in and we're going to tear up everything on the way in, and then we're going to fix it all the way coming out. And that's just life. That's how it is.
Yeah, that's one thing you brought up a good point, Randy. What you're going to see is a lot of, hey, man, I need to dig these ditches, let me in here. I'll come back in the summer when it's dry, and I'm going to come spread your dirt and move it around. Sometimes you just got to leave it in piles and come back and dress this stuff up. That new work order system that we have now, which is, we're upgrading it, but it has the ability to separate your work. So we don't lose those work orders that we need to go back. We call it dress-up mode. We can tag them as dress-out needs and go back later. And we might shut down digging for 2 months, but that means we got to go take care of the people what we told them we was going to do 6 months ago. So just moving forward, that's some of the things we'll be dealing with.
Well, I appreciate y'all getting together, you know, a concerted effort and coming up with a plan, because that's all we do. We beat everybody up, you know. We speak for the people, and we beat y'all up, the administration, from one side to the other here. You know, hey, get it done. So I'm serving in my 12th year. We saw all the capital plans. We've constantly worked hard on capital plans. As far as true maintenance plans, there were several good efforts, and this is a plan right here. So that's planned. We'll hold you to it. Thank you.
Mr. Johnny.
Just a quick question for clarification on the roadside ditches. That does include culvert replacement when necessary?
Yes, sir. If,
Okay,
as a matter of fact, the contractors actually took that burden off of us a little bit.
Yeah.
We get a lot of calls. Man, come fix my driveway. Well, you put it on the contractor that he makes the call. He can't get the water to flow. He documents it, sends pictures in and says, look, man, you got to fix this one. Can't get it. And then we issue a task order at that point, and if it qualifies, we go ahead on and do it. So we don't just go out there and change everybody's driveways.
Yeah.
It's the necessities to make the drainage water flow.
And elevation.
Yeah.
A lot of
Absolutely.
elevation issues.
Because even in my district, they had some undersized culverts, and they spoke to the residents and said, oh, yeah, we'll do whatever it takes. So they're working with
Well, the
them.
bottom line is we want the water to move.
And they do too.
And if if we can't make it move with the culvert in place, well, then part of the project is to replace it.
Right. That's all.
Todd.
Yeah, one quick thing, we're digging the road ditches, and without the outfall ditches dug, we kind of wasting time, so we need to get on the outfall ditches. Because, you're leveling, you're dropping your roadside ditches probably below your outfall that needs to be dug out.
I agree with that, and that's some of the bumps in the road I talked about. And that
Right.
example that was up on the board is one in particular, George Rouillet and 621. You had our parish contractor dig George Rouillet, and the state dug 621, and it all goes through Wade Burke's property. He's
Right.
been generous enough to let us go in there, and we worked with him and got the green light. And so that will tie in those outfalls and get all of that water on the side of the road dug out. But that takes a tremendous effort, sometimes between 2 or 3 groups of different
Entities, yeah.
entities to get it done. But we will continue to try to get those things
That's all I
coordinated.
have, Mr. Chairman.
But that's what our managers, and we have very, very good managers here, and that's one of the tasks that they have, is to is to see these issues ahead of time and be able to respond to them.
Ms. Terry?
I just thank you both for the plan. Certainly, I think this is outstanding, just to have it on paper so that we can look at it, and so that as you hold your employees accountable through this same method, we will hold you accountable. You will have presented it, we will have seen it, and we can ask you what's happening. So we thank you for that. I think it's going to be outstanding, and it will certainly have my support.
Mr. Aaron?
I'll let them go first.
Okay,
I wanna
Mr.
have a
Don.
chance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Aaron. Ron and William, I'm not going to bust your chops at all tonight. This is probably going to shock you and maybe the whole world, but if need be, I'll even make the motion. I think we would be foolish not to support number 7 tonight. I think your presentation, which is the biggest part of my decision, demonstrated not only bang for the buck, but more. In fact, I'm reminded, and like to remind everyone, that not too long ago, a former drainage director, Mr. Bill Ruse, stood where you all are right now and talked about the 2-year backlog. And as our chairman said, we even put a renewal tax issue out there, and it passed, so the people expect to continue to get something done. I hope they've been following the fact that you, out of the hundreds of ditches, roadside ditches, how far you got. And if you did the math, as I tried to emphasize, we're a little bit almost close to halfway there, and we spent a little bit over $1 million. And you're only asking for $1 million more. In fact, it might be a little bit light, but I wouldn't hesitate to even come back to finish the job. That all said, I just want to be clear on one more point. The people need to understand this. That list that Mr. Rue talked about, the list that y'all were originally working off or whatever, that was complaints, so that when citizen X, Y, or Z calls any one of my colleagues and myself and complains, and the street address gets in there, that's not only it's going to be addressed when this is all the dust settled, but more is what you said, because you're digging along a road longer than just the street address where a complaint came in. Is that not correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's real important. Now, so have you shared, because the surprise in your presentation is the 2 org charts. I'm going to word this carefully. Have you shared these with the administration, and is everybody happy with that? Because, and I know it's not part of the $1 million tonight, but you're talking about new hires, and I don't want to see that necessarily go away. 5 individuals buying 4 mid-sized excavators and 2 more pickup trucks, whatever, or maybe you said those are already in the mill with our budget. I think I captured that, because I would support even to that part. I think like Mr. Cluat said, we not only have the money, the tax was passed, the people have expectations. And I'll tell you this, in my district, I'm getting many more positive calls for the first time I've served in 7 years, and I'm getting negative calls. And I'm not sure it's even because they see the water flowing better. I think it's because they see in the ditches dug. And just that physical sight is exciting. And I say that having just had that rain event y'all were talking about. And there's a lot of pictures there, and a lot of places held water and everything. It was pretty extraordinary, but we're still working on it. And I'm confident if we get to the point where we get it all done, your plan going forward will maybe keep, as we add the off road ditches and so forth, keep this thing down to a mile roar. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you're ready, you want more discussion to entertain a
More
motion? or-
discussion.
So I'll yield, we'll hear more discussion in, but
Councilman, I'd like to respond to one of your questions about the administration. Mr. President challenged Ron and I in the most vocal way to come up
with an org chart? Okay, tell us about that,
come up with
because this council is going to come back to Mr. President asking for some other org charts eventually.
to come up with a plan, sir, that would take, that would accomplish what we're trying to do is get to these roadside ditches. And he was instrumental in helping us kind of refine some of it, as were some other people.
Do you like org charts, Mr. Daniel? Do you find them necessary?
I do like org charts, Councilman.
And it will help this process to have these org charts?
Yes, sir. It helps to
Thank
establish
you.
the chain of command, but there were a lot of people that helped. The point I'm trying to make is there were a number of people, and they know who they are, that helped us refine this approach and helped us with our presentation, and we just want to make sure that.
And let me say this, it would certainly help me, and I'm sure it helps everybody up here, but what I'd like to see too now, if we are unofficially or officially adopting, even though that's the council, the commission's purview on this particular org chart on just drainage, but I'd love to see names filled in all those various assistant positions and stuff, because sometimes I feel awkward having to call you, Ron, or having to call Mr. Daniel, people high up and say, got the popcorn trees in this ditch on this street. And I've expressed this to Mr. Daniel before, not to you, Ron. I've tried to train my constituents. They're apparently not as good as my colleague over here, Aaron, because he tells me they use it, but I can't get them to go use our fancy facilities. They still seem to be kind of like police jury mentality. Call your councilman, he can get you some relief and get your ditch dug. I'd rather call someone under you, unless, I don't know, maybe the parish president is still recommending that I call you, Mr. Daniel?
We would prefer that you call.
And I don't want to call you on Sunday either.
You can call me, look, I'm a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week employee.
I know, but I'm trying to get things off your plate so I
That
can
makes me
get,
work.
let me cut to the chase. I want to get my sewer work done.
That reduces.
And
me
so I want
minimum
to take
wage,
things
and I'm
off
okay
your
with
plate.
it. No, sir. Look, because I'm going to pick up the phone and call Ron, so.
Well, there you go.
And then Ron knows who to call when he gets that.
Well, maybe I'm going to start doing that. The president told me to do it the other way. Maybe I'll call you, Ron, or something. But if you fill in the blanks for us on this org chart,
We got a call center.
maybe I'll call the.
450-1200.
Right.
Maybe I will call the.
1200.
I'll call the guy that's directly over the quadrant that my district resides in on a vegetative matter. How's that?
We would prefer that you not, I mean.
Y'all wanna know.
We prefer that you didn't do that, Councilman. I mean,
All right.
because.
I think there's a law against that, quite honestly.
It actually duplicates the work. You're making the management and the teams that take information from the call center, they have those calls coming in, and then you
Right.
get second calls coming in.
Well, I'm
They're
not talking about
trying
so
to-
much them, but where you have like the assistant guys I'm reading, with a title like that, I'm figuring they could make a decision and say, yeah, we need to go add that to the list, or.
Well, they don't, any complaint that comes in gets added to the list, Councilman. And like Ron said, we try to do the work as they come in. Obviously, situations that are threat to public safety, we move those to the top of the priority list and things like that. But we do try to operate on first come, first served, although that's not always possible.
Right.
So, you finished, Mr. Simon?
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna keep calling you guys till you tell me, go up a rope, Doc, but that's how you want it.
Probably not going to happen.
You can, I'm not saying it's a wise thing to do, but thank you.
Mr. President?
I just want to say, these guys did a great job. We've been talking about this for a good while. We went back and forth on a few things, far as the equipment, and staying ahead of the game is what we're trying to do. And we talked about, like when you're on road, you got flagmen and different laborers that you might not need off-road. So when you don't need those guys, send them to Lamar Dixon, because we always got cleanup over there. We got rid of our prisoners at Lamar Dixon for several reasons, but so they can pay part of those salaries for the laborers that's not being used. When it's really bad off-road and they can't do any road there, they still got that machinery they can go and do on-road. So we just want the employees to know, and we're going to have a safety meeting soon to let them know that. I know that everybody's thinking we getting rid of their jobs, but it's really not. In fact, you see, he needs to hire a few people. So I just want y'all to know that. And when people call you, please tell them to call in the call center, but you can also call these supervisors, because we want everything documented. So that's why we got the call center. So we got something to stand on when people say, I called 5 times, and yes, they called 5 times, or whatever, you know, and we can give you that documentation for your districts. Thanks. That's it.
Appreciate that. Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, this all sounds wonderful. I know we've been asking for a plan for a long time. I think it sounds great. The funny part is, I know you can have some bloggers and keyboard warriors out there that want to tear this apart. They tear everything apart, everything that's positive in the parish. But this is fantastic. We've been asking for it. We've already seen results from the work that y'all are doing, and we're going to extend that. You know, I don't see how anybody in the council could be against this. But you know, there's always people out there. But this is fantastic.
We're always looking for constructive criticism. If as this plan goes on, we're going to be tweaking it, and if we see things that we can do to make it better and more efficient, that's what we're going to do.
I appreciate that comment, Aaron, and it leads to one thing that I really would ask from you guys. I need something from y'all, and nothing in this parish is done alone. All right, I need you guys to reach out to our supervision, our management team, to get something like this to be successful. Everybody from the top to the bottom's got to buy in. So I want you to pat the management team behind this on the back. They need the confirmation that you got their back. And sometimes it's not always easy to go out there and talk to somebody and tell them, look, man, we're coming on your property. We got servitude. That sometimes can get controversial, and it's a tough job. So some of the key personnel in those areas need to know their value and rise up with this plan and hopefully get everybody on board with it.
We got their back, and we have your back on this. This is an excellent plan. I think it's going to be very successful. Thank you.
Mr. Travis, anything? Mr. Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ron and William. I also agree with everything all my comrades up here have had to say, and thought the presentation was excellent, and I really appreciate, what you guys have done. I guess my experience with that case studies has shown that change almost always leads to efficiency improvements. We can't guarantee that long term, but I think that, we keep trying, and you guys really do appreciate that effort. I wanted to just clarify, a couple of things here, if you don't mind, which is, this was done based on work requests that we've generated. There's no regular maintenance that's associated with this. This is responding to that backlog that we had heard, that 2 or 3 year backlog. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So do you think that because of that, I know my personal experience has been that people almost quit putting in the work orders because the backlog was so long. Do you think that, we'll see an increase in the work orders because of this?
I think you already have in the road department.
Yeah, you did.
You can see some of the trends on the map. You actually promote work. They see the jobs get done, and then they call, and then we already on a plan moving forward, and that's some of the things you saw us coordinating with our own crews. Well, we want to keep the map lit up, so go knock them out while they're right there. So yes, it does generate some work orders, but the program's keeping up with it, and I think the enhancement of the 2 additional crews will, I feel like, be able to keep up with that demand, and it may or may not need more later. I don't know, but the trends are facts. So I think that'll continue. And the off-road stuff, that's challenging. I don't think you'll ever stop the calls from completely coming in without having parish sewer. You clean them, and in 2 years, it looks like you didn't clean them.
Would you say that again, Ron? The part about the parish sewer.
William's right next to me. And
No. The public and everybody and all this council needs to hear this, because eventually I'm going to be asking them to vote.
The parish-wide sewer would be a tremendous benefit to drainage off-road.
You put nutrient-rich material in there that's causing the vegetation to grow and burdening our crews and
solids and.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. That's one of the biggest challenges. We can dig them and dig them and dig them, and in 2 years' time, you're starting over. Well, it might take quite a few years to dig them all.
Imagine that.
So what is the current backlog now on let's say, the roadside ditches? What, if somebody called in a request, I know that's probably dependent on which quadrant they're in, but let's say they're in,
Well, we're going to have
The
all of the work
northeast.
orders currently on the books.
District 2 specifically.
Well, we're going to have all the work orders currently on the books, we think, done by November. Now, we know that there's going to be additional work orders added, but we think we'll be able to take care of those as they come in.
So, and I also want people to understand that, again, we're catching up. So
Right.
this puts us, even at, we get to the end of the year, this puts us at a point where we should have been, I don't know how many years ago, but where we should be, to where somebody's under a normal, where they put in a work request and they have a normal wait period. Can we just say that?
And as the Councilman Satterley said, the more visible our equipment is out there working, the more people have optimism that if they call in, that
gonna
we'll
get-
actually go out and address their concerns.
Yes.
So
We'll get the grease.
we're gonna, I think we'll see an increase in work orders coming in. I hope that, that off-road, we don't see a huge increase coming in, because that, again, that's where the challenge is.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing?
Well,
Because
I'm
it's telling
sorry.
you what a problem is. I encourage
my
new,
turn or what?
more. I'm sorry, Bill. Apologize.
Go ahead.
No.
Well, Mr.
Well,
Bill,
I'm wondering about, converting this when we get to, at the end of the year, we're gonna get to the point where we're more or less caught up with the work orders. But then, are we gonna get onto this program that's gonna be on some frequency, we're gonna do the whole parish?
We're gonna, as this program progresses and we get caught up on the roadside, then we're going to start looking at more of a maintenance program. That is a tall order. I mean, we were having that discussion this morning, looking at the number of miles of ditches that we have to do. And Mr. President wants me to cut it down a little bit, because there are some curb and gutter. But there's, how many, almost 1,000 miles of ditches that we have to do. That's just, we have to establish some kind of cycle and see what we can do. But our goal right now is to try to get caught up with the work orders, and then we'll be looking at some sort of maintenance, and hopefully in the next few months, 4 or 5 months, we'll come back to you with some sort of maintenance plan.
So I just want to close with this, that presumably, that when we get towards the end of the year, we get this backlog completed, then we will go back to this prioritization, to where we prioritize work orders, and they'll be done based on their priority and where they are in this frequency. So we're still, I don't want people to think that we're going to have every ditch in the parish cleaned by the end of this year, and that, we're going to have people sitting around waiting to go to work somewhere. That, this is just getting us to a point where we should have been, and it really gets us at the beginning point, is my understanding
This
of it.
gets us to the point where someone can call in and we can respond, and we can do some maintenance, we can respond. But by no means, the general public should not think that as many ditches as we have, that we're ever gonna be caught up with everything. It's just, that's not a possibility.
We'll always have to prioritize which ones we
We'll always prioritize, and we will try to handle everybody's request as quickly as possible, but that's just not always fast enough for everybody.
Thank you very much.
You had one other thing, Mr. Luata?
No, I think Bill and them covered it pretty good, but I'm just telling you, when you talked about, inspiring new work orders. The easier the system is to put a work order in, the more response you're gonna get to people putting work orders in. The more they see people out there, I'm gonna say that there's a possibility of a 30% increase. When you're on a road, you're on George Lambert, and you're cleaning out, you know what I mean? You might have had 3 people down there that were complaining. But when they see them cleaning it out, you're gonna get people saying, just what you'd said a while ago, Ron, people are gonna want more done, okay?
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we're here to serve. We're not here to make
Absolutely.
money, we're not here to do anything, we're here to serve.
it makes it easy when they're already on site and they call while the job's happening, and you can
Right.
take care of it while you're there.
And,
It does work like that. Been working well.
Bill said it, but the fact is that we've been talking for a long time of getting caught up. Getting caught up is just the first stage, and that it's gonna continue on. Thank you.
Mr. Aaron?
I'm gonna cut this, continued cheerleading down, make a motion that we approve number 7.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Aaron, second by Mr. Johnny. Any opposition to the motion? Any other discussion? If not, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good presentation, by the way.
All right, number 8, this is approval, Joey.
This is approval to move forward with issuing an RFQ for engineering support as needed for East Ascension Gravity Drainage District projects with a scope based on the following, but not limited to project development, H&H modeling, cost-benefit analysis, project design, grant services, and impact studies.
Motion, Mr.
Moved by
Chairman.
Mr. Johnny,
Second.
second by Mr. Dan. Discussion.
Joyce, yeah,
Go ahead.
real quick, so you basically, you said you want a budget to be able to get engineering support in various ways,
Yes, various ways.
to where you can task order them out, whatever.
Yep.
I guess I don't remember the right acronym, but, IDIQ, whatever it was, where we set up, a number of qualified,
That's exactly what we're trying to do here, Randy.
okay, well,
We
that's what
want
I'm
to be able
saying,
to
we're
have a
not,
retainer where we have a budget of, say, 500,000 on this, and we get multiple firms to bid against it. And then when we have projects or problems in the parish, we already have a procurement process that's already done. And we can come in with a recommendation to you guys and go to work rather than start bidding and take 3 or 4 months to.
yeah,
react.
and I understand you're trying to reach the same point, but what I'm talking about is that you have a set of qualified firms that's
Yeah,
already ready.
It's very
to-
similar to what we do for surveying work already. Where
That's
you
what I'm
select
talking-
4 or 5 of them and you
That's right.
just task out
Right.
as we go.
Task order.
Mr. Bill?
Or maybe, but I wanted to know about this H&H modeling. Is that, what, is there a specific plan there? Is that gonna be to to get a parish-wide model, or at least to get a model that encompasses the Amite River portion of the parish?
I don't think that was the intent, but there's certainly the capability. I think that we have some projects within the parish right now that we need to have a tool to be able to say, is it something we put to bed that can't be done, or is it cost benefit to do something? So this would be a tool to utilize and look into those areas.
So, DOTD, working through the governor's office, they developed the Amite River Basin model. So we'll have that. Our consultants will be able to use that. It's free. One of the things that DOTD emphasized in the presentation is they want to collect additional information. So anything that we do in any of the other basins, they're going to be developing models for every watershed in the state. So anything that we do, this data will be available for them to use to help with additional model development.
So one of the reasons I was asking about that is, we're looking at this floodplain management ordinance, and part of that is probably going to require some modeling to verify rise in a BFE for future development, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm glad to see this, and if DOTD, I've forgotten now the contractor was working on Amite River, but if we can take that Blueberry or Blackberry or somebody,
Dewberry.
if we can take that and use this, and I think it would be very good.
Yeah, and that's DOTD's intent, was to take that model and be able to give it to everybody, and it's open access, it's free to be able to use.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any opposition to this motion? Any other discussion, Mr. Kluan?
Yeah, real quick.
Don't say that.
I mean, it's a quick point. I mean, I want IDIQ. I just still want to explore that, just bring this back to you, that you get a number of firms on board with that. And what's the magnitude of this you see? It's just for your requests, your RFQ, the ability for RFQ. I mean,
Yeah, I think that, make sure I understand the question.
To be job ready is what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We want to be able to have an issue come up and we can react and get something moving on it, is the intent.
And
I may not be answering your
and
question.
I may be able to go into.
I'm using IDIQ to the point, and you can correct me, legal, if you, that puts you ready to put somebody to work. You understand?
So let me tell you the box that we're continuously in, and this is the whole purpose of this, is under state law, there's no requirement to bid for professional, not, I even want to use the
Right.
word bid, but there's no requirement to do any kind of RFQ for professional services. You can
Right.
normally just hire anybody who you want. Actually, under the law, you're precluded from asking for a price in a bid when it comes to a
Right.
professional service. We do have an ordinance in Ascension Parish that requires any project over $50,000 that we got to go through the RFQ selection process. The problem that we continuously have with that is, you guys, first off, you're not even mandated to select the highest scoring person. You can select whoever you want.
You go down to
And then
number
two, it
9.
just slows everything down 3 or 4 months. So the whole process of this is, let's just do an RFQ that's broad in scope, get everyone's qualifications, and then we can come to you as the board and just ask for a task order to move forward instead of going through the RFQ process on every specific engineering project.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out if you still answered my question, and when you come back to me, you're gonna come back to me with a project and a firm?
Correct. That's how I anticipated it. When y'all have a task ready, y'all gonna come forward.
Right,
Just
because
like you
different
normally
firms
do.
have different talents, so it will be
I
a
think-
task with a firm.
That's what I'm saying, you're gonna come back here with a firm named, not a list of firms, you're gonna back here with a firm name that you want a task order.
I think that you're going to have a selection committee at the end of this, and with that, you're going to grade a group of firms. And you're going to select X amount of them to be on retainer with a pool budget. And then from that
Then you
administration,
do an IDIQ.
yes, administration
Okay.
can come back and make a recommendation with a project,
Trying
with
to
a
clear it up.
recommended firm, and move with your support to do that job, without having to go out for RFQ from the start and have all of that procurement process completed. So that is the intent.
I'm with you, because if you don't come back here with a firm that you want, then you still got the drudgery, that's gonna take 3 months or whatever. All right, thank you.
Any opposition? None? Motion passed. Number 9.
Chairman, real quick, I feel very rude. I didn't introduce our secretary here, Miss Liz, earlier. I apologize.
We're
So
gonna give her
make
right
sure
at
you
the
give her
end.
a
We'll give
pat
her
on the
all
back
of the pat on the back, Miss Liz.
Thank you.
Number 9, executive session.
Motion to go into executive
Motion
session.
by Mr. Cloyd. Second by Mr. Todd. Miss Liz. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cazzo? Councilwoman
Yes.
Cazzo? Councilman Kaluuya?
Yes.
Councilman Dawson?
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson? Not here. Councilman Lambert? Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes.
Councilman Satterley?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Passed, thank you.
Motion to reconvene.
Moved by Mr. Todd, second by Ms. Terry.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dawson.
I'd like to make a motion to request a meeting to take place between East Ascension Gravity Drainage District, including their legal counsel and Sorrento representatives, to discuss the issues and potential project considerations within the Sorrento City town limits.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dawson, second by Mr. Cluett. Discussion, not. Motion passed.
Motion adjourned.
Moved by Mr. Dan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Todd.
Good job, guys.